All right, guys, today's the day we really start dressing up this motor and making it look good. We got our Chariot cool head right here. Got our Mag 1 bearing grease. By the way, guys, before I get started, remember to give me that thumbs up button if you enjoy this content. Really helps me out a lot. But anyways, we're going to get to putting on this cool head. It's pretty easy to do. It's a little bit different than putting on your traditional head. We're going to be using these O-rings rather than using a standard head gasket like this one here, this black one. That would be a standard gasket. We're not going to use that with these. These cool heads use a different design. You can see in here, there's grooves. And the grooves fit these O-rings. So if you buy this kit or pretty much any cool head kit, you're going to get a series of O-rings. This one actually comes with extras, these here, which you're not going to be using. So I'm going to show you the ones that we're going to be using today. They're all laid out here. You have the two brown ones. These wrap around your domes. I have these flipped just so you can see what they look like on both sides. And then, of course, we have our acorn nuts, copper washers, our other here we go, O-rings up here. These are going to go in these openings, or grooves rather, here and here. And then these smaller ones go up here to seal where your spark plug goes in the top of the dome. And then this here is the port that goes on the back for your coolant. So this also has a groove in it, if you can see through the packaging. And that's actually going to get this O-ring, believe it or not. That fits in the groove. And I'm going to show you how we get it in there and keep it in there from moving around. Okay, so the first order of business is going to be getting these O-rings in the right spots and making it so that they don't just flop around, because it would basically be impossible to put this thing on. You know, you can't hold the things in place when you're putting your head on. Now, before we go ahead and do that, there's one thing I want to show you when it comes to lining up your studs with your cool head. All right, guys, so we're over top of our cylinders here. I have this set up so that I can show you in the clearest way what I'm talking about. Basically, when you get a new cool head, or any cylinder head for that matter, it's not uncommon that these things are a little bit tough to get on. So don't expect that you're going to get your cool head and it's just going to plop right in place. If it does, that's awesome. But a lot of times it just takes a little bit of encouragement and pushing these things on. Not in a tough way, and you'll see when we put it on what I mean. But sometimes it takes a little bit of encouragement. And what I wanted to show you is that if it's so out of line, what I like to do is take my cylinder, or my head, line it up in place, and if you see the little bit of light shining through around the studs in here, when you're looking directly over top, like you can't really see it in the camera, but when I'm looking directly over the top in here, I can see which studs are not lining up perfect. And it's usually just one, and just very slightly, that makes it bind up. Now what I do is I take a pair of channel locks and just very gently make sure it's at the right size, usually the smallest one, at least for a Banshee. And you hook it on here. You don't have to squeeze that tight. And then you just pull in whichever direction that you need, very, very gently. And if your motor is moving, if it's not in the frame, you can put your palm back here, pull. If you need to go around the other side, you can do it the other way. Very gently, guys. I can't stress that enough. Just enough to make these things budge. It doesn't take much to bend them just slightly. And then put your cool head back on, see if it lines up. And usually it's just a slight tweak, and then your cool head will pop right on. So don't go stressing out if you're trying to put your motor together and it's like a freaking nightmare and you think nothing's fitting together, or your cylinders are cocked or something. That's probably not the case. It's probably just one of your studs isn't perfectly straight. Back to the cool heads. So let's get these O-rings in place. Now what we're going to be using is this wheel grease. And what you do is just put a little dabs of grease wherever your O-ring's going to go. And that's going to hold it in place. And then you wipe the excess away. It's not going to harm anything. So let's go ahead and we'll start getting these O-rings on. Alright, so we got our O-rings in place. We're going to try to wipe off as much excess grease as you possibly can. It's not the end of the world though if you have a little bit in there. It's not going to hurt anything. So now we will first take our domes and we're going to place them up here, and you want this little divot up here facing your intake. That little divot is going to fit right into place here with our cool head. You're going to line up your domes. Alright, so we'll throw our copper washers on. Then put our acorn nuts on, finger tight. Now I recommend using a deep well 6-point socket. If you use one of these, you're less likely to round out your acorn nuts. I'm just going to run these down gently. This should pull this right into position. It shouldn't be too hard. If it's a struggle, don't force anything. Now once those are snug, we're going to come back in with our impact. We're going to tighten these down to 20 foot-pounds. We're going to go in a crisscross pattern. Alright, so that head was a little bit stubborn, but it pulled down nice and smoothly. It didn't bind up on anything, so I think we'll be alright. You can see it came down nice and flat. Torque those bolts down to 20 foot-pounds. Good to go. So the next order of business is installing this coolant fitting. We have to put this O-ring in this kind of squiggly groove. So we're going to use the same method we used with the other O-rings. I'm just going to take a little bit of grease and kind of fill in these grooves. It's amazing that that O-ring takes shape and fits in there like that. Alright, we're about to get to mounting our fitting here. Before we do that, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of anti-seize on the ends of my bolts because these are stainless steel. We're going into aluminum. And while we're back here, I'm going to go ahead and put my coolant line on and my coolant fitting, which goes through the case. It actually goes this way. You can see I cleaned it up though, polished it up. It was pretty cruddy before. And now when we come over to this side of our fitting, there's a little groove right here, and we have, it almost looks like a keychain ring that goes right around there, snaps in that groove, and it prevents your fitting from coming out this way. And then we have an O-ring that's going to go around here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this apart and slide it over. Then we'll take our new O-ring and slide it on. Now these O-rings usually come with a bottom end gasket kit. We have one last coolant fitting to put in. Goes right here. Now it uses an 11mm deep well. Fits right in there. Now before I do that, I'm going to wrap a little bit of Teflon tape around this thing just to ensure we don't have any leaks. When you're wrapping your Teflon tape, it's a good idea to spin it in the direction that you're going to be turning so that it doesn't back off when you're screwing this thing in. And also, we'll make sure to get rid of any obstructions at the bottom. Alright guys, our Chariot cool head is on, and this thing is starting to look more and more like a Banshee motor should. So the next order of business is really going to spruce this thing up. We've got our billet intake that came from bpracingatv.com, and we have our V-Force reeds, stainless steel bolts, and our gaskets, of course, our fittings that go to the carburetors, and we've got a little bit of anti-seize that we're going to use on our bolts, and of course a little bit of Yamabond 6B. Now I'm going to be putting this Yamabond on in between our billet intake here and basically in all the mating surfaces of this intake. Now I learned some information recently from the forums, and I've also watched South Texas Banshee's channel, which if you guys haven't watched his stuff, if you guys are assembling any kind of Banshee stuff, he's got the channel to check out. I really look up to that guy. He does a lot of great videos, a lot of great visuals and everything, and goes through everything. I mean, he's very, very detailed with his videos. So if you guys are waiting for more Banshee content, definitely check out southtexasbanshee.com. But anyways, what I was getting to is I watched his billet intake install because he built a very similar 4mm motor. And I'm glad I watched that because these things are notorious for having small leaks. But it should be no problem. If we put a little bit of Yamabond on all our mating surfaces, shouldn't have any leaks at all. All right, so let's get this thing apart. Alright, so there it is. I'm going to take some Yamabond 6B and apply a very thin coat all the way around these mating surfaces. Just a very thin coat. Once again, guys, credit to South Texas Banshee for this, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have even done this. That actually looks pretty cool like that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and bolt this thing together. And I'm going to use just a little bit of anti-seize on these bolts too. Now I want this thing to be ready to go, so I'm going to throw it in the vise very gently. And torque these bolts down to 8 foot-pounds. Now we'll wipe off all the excess that oozed out, which is barely anything. We're getting ready to put on this billet intake. So we're going to put a couple different types of sealant on our gaskets and our billet intake. So for our gaskets, we're going to spray them with some high-tech Permatex gasket sealer. And we're going to do both sides. Then we're going to put the Yamabond 6B on the back of our billet intake and on the front side of our V-Force reed blocks. Now both of these sealants are supposed to set for a minute or so, so I'm going to go ahead and apply my sealant now. Now we'll go ahead and put our reeds in. Now we'll put our billet intake block on. Do your best to line up all your holes. And yes guys, I did put a small amount of anti-seize on these bolts. Tighten these down to 8 foot-pounds. Dude, this billet intake looks freaking sick. Now, I didn't show all the times I ran around with my torque wrench, but I like to go over all 12 of these bolts and repetitively go over and make sure that they're all spec'd down, because when you tighten down one, another one's not quite as tight. So I go over them literally like 5 or 6 times until they're all not moving at all and the torque wrench is just clicking. Definitely not one of the areas that you want to skimp out on torquing. You know, don't want any leaks or anything here. So I like to spec that down to 8 foot-pounds, each one of those bolts. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing with these intake boots. I'm going to take the Yamabond 6B and put it on the back side of both of these, and then also on the mating surface of our billet up here. And then we're going to go ahead and bolt those on. Now I'm going to go ahead and put these on with some washers, which did not come with the kit, but I want to put the washers on there. Now these don't really need to be that tight, so I'm just going to snug these a little bit. Alright, so we got our cool head on and we got our billet intake on, and this thing is finally starting to look really cool. I'm getting very excited about this motor. I think it looks better than it did the first time I built it with the stock bore and the black cylinders. I think this is really looking like a super clean build. I'm really happy with the way it's coming out. Now, if you guys go ahead and do this, you know what I always say, guys, take your time. These are 2 parts. I mean, all these parts are really important, but this is really a part that you don't want to mess around with. You want to take your time, because if you have any leaks or anything, you got to take everything apart anyway, and you're going to have to do it all over again, and that's going to be a pain in the ass. So definitely take your time. It was a little time consuming putting all the Yamabond in between our billet intake, but I think that's going to pay off in the end. I'm pretty confident that there won't be any leaks or anything like that. Use your torque wrench. You know, I'm a big fan of using my torque wrench. Some of you guys bust on me for that, saying I'm the torque wrench Nazi or whatever. And yeah, man, I like to use the torque wrench. Really, the only bolt I didn't use the torque wrench on were these 2 rubber intake bolts, and then on the back of our cool head with this water fitting. But other than that, I use the torque wrench on everything, man. I just think it's an important thing to do. So for you guys wondering who these parts are by, this is a Chariot cool head. I'm running Driveline Performance domes, and this is a billet intake kit that I got from bpracingATV.com. So stick around, guys. I'm going to be doing a video on our clutch side and our stator side of the motor. And then the motor's done. That'll be it. We'll be putting it in the frame, putting our exhaust on, our carburetors, and our filters. You know, we're getting down to the wire here. I really can't wait to fire this thing up. I kind of want to see what it would look like with the carbs on here and the filters. I think that usually looks pretty cool. But I feel like I should wait, until I put those things on. I'm not really sure. Fuck it. Let's put them on there. Definitely looks pretty cool. Especially without the side covers on there. It's like skinny and long. That's pretty cool, man. I gotta say, I'm getting pretty excited about this. All right, guys. So as always, remember to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this content. If there's anything you'd like me to change, the way I'm presenting this stuff, let me know. Because like I said, I try to make my videos the best quality that I can for you guys. One other thing I did forget to mention, we are going to be making a video on checking your squish band. That might actually be the next video that's coming up. So you guys can look forward to that. And the reason I brought that up is because if you guys have any suggestions for videos that you'd like to have me make in the future, please let me know below. That was actually an idea that one of you guys had to check how to do the squish. So we'll be doing that soon. And of course, remember to check out my Instagram page. It's Sabo350. You guys can send me in your quads and dirt bikes and your projects, and I like to post that stuff up. Please, guys, give me some time to post them up. And I might not be able to get to your guys' submission. I try to get to every single one I can, but I just can't get to them all. Okay, guys, so I'm calling it for this video. I will see you guys in the next one. If I don't have a video out before the weekend, have a good weekend, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.